Hello and warm greetings to all of you, dear friends. Welcome to our channel. Our channel is a channel of mystical stories, and just like its name suggests, we're planning to use this space to talk about the stories that have been passed down to us by mystics. Stories that are truly beautiful and that carry very deep spiritual themes, which can help guide us in our spiritual life. Thank you so much. I am starting with the book Masnavi Yamanavi, and we're starting the first story together, God willing. All right, the story is the story of the king and the slave girl. Listen, my friends, this story is truly a reflection of our own condition. The essence of the present, when you truly grasp it, you gain both this world and the hereafter. So this is about our own states when we came into the world of existence, so we could become aware of our own condition. You end up wanting both this world and the next. Our story is the story of a king who has both material wealth and the riches of a teacher. One day, this king decides to go hunting, and he and his companions head out to hunt, when suddenly he himself ends up caught in the trap of love for a young maid. So the king falls in love, deeply in love, and plans that once he buys that girl, he'll finally be with her. And as fate would have it, the young maid falls ill. The Shah, deeply sad and heartbroken, turns to the physicians for help. Well, that is just how this world works. No matter what you have, there is always something missing. He doesn't have a cup to drink water, and when he finally gets one, he breaks it. There is always something lacking in this world, and here too, when he finally gets a maid, that maid is sick. So the Shah goes and gathers the physicians and tells them that both lives are in their hands. Not just the maid's life, but mine too. So do whatever you can. The doctors, full of arrogance, say, rest easy, each of us is like a messiah who can bring the dead back to life. So don't let sadness take over, and know that we'll heal your maid. Well, just as they spoke so arrogantly, if they don't want to, they simply won't say anything. So God showed the physicians how powerless humans really are. Whatever they did, whatever treatment they tried, things only got harder and harder. She wasn't getting better at all. In fact, she was getting even sicker. If they were supposed to give her oxymel to reduce the bile, it would only increase it. And if almond oil was supposed to lessen the dryness, it would only worsen it. And that is how they got nowhere, and things just kept getting harder and harder. And the king sees that these physicians are failing, and when he sees what has come of their efforts, he runs barefoot toward the mosque. He goes into the mosque's prayer niche, starts crying, and when he comes to, he begins pleading and praying to God. He says, "O God, whose smallest generosity fills the world, you who know every secret, fix my problem and heal my pain." Right then, a sigh and a deep cry rise from his soul, stirring the sea of divine mercy. That sigh seems to reach the heavens, and little by little he drifts off to sleep. When he falls asleep, he sees an old man coming toward him in his dream. In the dream, they give him good news. They say, "Good news, your needs will be granted and your requests accepted. Tomorrow, an elder from our side will come to you, and he is very trustworthy, honest, and reliable." And see his power and his divine power at work in healing. The king waits for tomorrow. When morning comes, the king sits waiting to see his dream come true, so he can see the promise he was given in the dream come true. He sees someone in the distance coming toward him, moving in the dreamlike way. He is halo-like, and he is coming toward him. And in the man's face, he sees that same figure he'd seen before. He sees the old man, he's coming toward him. That old woman, she's moving out of the sunlight, now slipping into the shade. He comes toward him, and happy and excited, he personally goes to welcome his guest. He goes over and pulls his guest into a hug, and he tells him that it seems like you were my true love. You were my true beloved, but it was the maid's love that led me to you. So it turns out my beloved was you all along. The king goes out to welcome his guest. That divine sage pulls him in tightly and takes his hand and forehead and asks how he is being. How was this trip? And how did the journey go? The king sets up a banquet so he can welcome his guest properly. After the banquet, the king takes the physician and brings him to the harem, and he tells him the story of the slave girl's illness and her frail her frail condition, and he takes him to stand by the girl's bedside. The sage goes to the girl's bedside and he sees her color and her pulse and her illness, and he realizes that what those physicians did only made things harder, and that is why the girl ended up even sicker, because they were unaware of her condition, because the physicians were unaware of the state of her heart. Well, this tells the sage that her illness is an illness of longing, and it is not a sickness of the body, but a sickness of the heart. But he didn't share this secret with the king, and he realized that the girl's sickness was a sickness of the heart. That is, she was in love. Okay, after this, the divine healer tells the king to clear out the house so that nobody else is here, so I can ask the slave girl something. So the king does just that, and the sage and the girl are left alone, and little by little, the sage starts asking her some questions. Like, where is your hometown? Which city did you come from? In that city, your acquaintances, your relatives, who are they? But at the same time, his hand is on the servant girl's pulse, and he takes these answers one by one from her. Look, friends, when a thorn goes into your foot, it is really hard to get it out. You have to put your foot up on your knee, then you use a needle to find the splinter and slowly work it out. Well, now our topic is this whole thorn in the heart thing and how difficult it is. Hakim Ilahi started the quiz question and answer session. So where is your city? Where are you from? Are your relatives in Chekasani? Then when you traveled out of the city, which city did you go to? Which city were you in? And were your acquaintances there too? Who did you run into and get to know in those cities? His hand was still firmly on the maidservant's pulse, but nothing appeared in the girl's pulse. No change in her color, spirit, or expression. Well, as the story went on, this back and forth continued. They went city by city and nothing changed in the girl's pulse until he reached the city of Samarkand. When they reached Samarkand, the slave girl's pulse suddenly leapt. All of a sudden, the girl's face and even her spirit turned both pale and flushed. Then she jerked upright and her face turned red and yellow. And the physician noticed something and realized that Samarkand was the place he'd been looking for. So he continued asking who she knew there, what acquaintances she had, and when he mentioned the name of the goldsmith from Samarkand, the girl's pulse jumped again. And then it became clear that he even found the person he was looking for in that city. Then he continued asking questions, asked about the goldsmith's neighborhood, and found where he lived too. So the divine sage learned the secret in the girl's heart and discovered her problem. He knows the cause and who it is, and he found the Samarkandi. And here he turns to the girl and says, "Be joyful and free of sorrow among us, because I found the source of your pain. I'll cure your pain. From now on, stop taking those pills. Don't be anxious. You'll be fine. Your pain and its cure are in my hands." Those words really comforted the girl, and she became calm, happy, and hopeful that her illness would be cured. Then the sage tells the girl that from now on the secret is between you and me, and don't tell anyone. And even if the king asks you, even if he insists, don't answer him, because you have a secret in your heart. It will help you reach your goal sooner. Then the divine sage goes to the king, explains the situation, and tells him that no matter what, you must bring the goldsmith to the palace. Even with great wealth, lure him if you must, but make sure he comes. The king accepts the order and sends two wise and learned men toward the goldsmith. They enter, tell the goldsmith the good news that they've come from the king, and flatter him, saying he is a master craftsman and the king has chosen him for palace work. After that, they give him a great deal of wealth and tell him to come with them to the palace and become one of the king's close circle. When the goldsmith sees all that wealth, he leaves his wives and children behind, and he goes along with this emissary toward the king's palace. So he heads to the palace with the king's envoy, alright? So they set out, and unaware of what Ilahi and the king have planned for him, he heads to the royal palace. Completely unaware of the plan, he goes with the messenger until they reach the king's palace. They take him to the sage, then the sage brings him before the king. The king honors him greatly and treats him with respect. He gives him a great deal of wealth and riches. And after that, he tells the king to bring the two together. What does that mean? It means the girl was united with her beloved, the Samarkandi goldsmith. The king carries out the order and brings the two together until for about 6 months they stayed together, spending their days side by side. Little by little, the girl started getting better and better. After the girl kept getting better and better, the divine healer went on to do something else. After that, he prepared a poisonous bile-like potion and gave it to drink to the goldsmith. He'd go drink that potion and he'd grow sickly, weak, ugly, and even uglier, to the point that when the girl laid eyes on him, he'd become that weak and that ugly. His love for the goldsmith grew colder and colder in the slave girl's eyes, and little by little she grows more beautiful and weaker until she finally died and passed away. And the girl too is in a state where she brings back her full health and makes the king's heart happy. When the story gets to this point, Rumi opens up a chapter on this, asking whether this divine act was ethical or not. Well, given that this question has come up for a lot of people out there, Rumi makes this point to answer the question. He'd say it was the work of a divine sage, a truly divine act. He did it by God's command. It wasn't out of whim or desire. The act was done by God's command. He is connected to the universal mind, the mind that knows our situation from the beginning to the end. So for him, this, because of his deeds and actions, isn't immoral. It is actually moral. Alright folks, let's dive into decoding this story about what truth each of the story's characters points to in our own lives. So the king of the story, who is he? The king of the story is us ourselves. We're the ones, the humans who fell in love. In love with what? We fell in love with our own heart. That slave girl is a symbol of our heart and soul. Heart, soul, this is how we are, our appearance. Friends, as you know, in mysticism, our soul is likened to a mirror where God's light can shine into it and the beauty of the divine face can appear. Well, this heart of ours into which light and beauty have shone is that same maiden. The maiden shows that beauty in the mirror of her heart, and it is what makes the king fall in love. The healers are that second drop. Those earthly doctors are unable to be that second drop. They're the scholars of this world who can't heal our spiritual pains. So who is that divine sage? The divine sage is a friend of God, someone who comes from God and is sent by God toward us to help us become who we're meant to be. We're the ones caught in the pain of our ego, our self-centeredness, our selfishness, and our self-worship. So the divine sage has come to heal this pain of our ego and self-centeredness. So now it is clear what is Zargar Samarhandi referring to our ego, to us, to our vanity and self-centeredness. This must be healed by a divine sage. Alright, so friends, we're getting to, well, if you remember, one point, remember that when someone comes to know themselves, they come to know their God. The human being, the king, too came to know himself. He came to truly know himself so he could come to know his God. Meaning he looked into his own heart so he could truly be. He looked into the mirror so he could see God's light. But there was a problem in the way and it needed healing. And that problem is our ego and our selfish, self-centered nature. That a layer of tarnish has settled on this mirror. This mirror of the heart is coated with a kind of rust-like dust. Sitting on it is our selfishness and self-centeredness, which keep God's reflection from appearing in our hearts. Something only the wise healer can cure.